What's up, Louis? It's Guys here. Hope you are doing great. In this video, I'm going to share a couple of local South African stocks that I'm considering buying. And at the end of the video, I'm going to show you guys which one I decided to buy. Before we jump into it, I want to share my opinion with you and how I approach investing. I don't like to diversify my portfolio. And let's say, for example, I have 5,000 Rand to invest. Most people or most beginner investors will go ahead and buy 10 or 20 stocks with that 5,000 Rand, basically calling it diversification. But at the end of the day, you are spreading out your money so thin that even though one of those stocks perform really well, the returns that you receive on, let's say, 500 Rand or 250 Rand isn't going to really help you in the long term. What I like to do is to invest my money, let's say that same 5,000 Rand, into one stock after I've researched that company, knowing that it has a lot of growth potential, and let's say that company doubles in value in the next 2 or 3 years, that 5,000 Rand can actually become 10,000 Rand and giving you the potential to actually receive a lot of money in the longer term. It's really not smart having a portfolio of 20 or 30 stocks with all of them having 200 or 500 Rand invested. With that said, let's jump straight into the video, and I want to show you guys the platform that I'm going to use. It's called Brokestock, and this is a brokerage firm that is basically competing directly with Easy Equities, and the main advantage of this platform is that there's no monthly fees to invest your money on this platform. So if you are someone that wants an alternative, definitely check out Brokestock because they have a lot to offer. And I wanted to show you guys some of the shares or the local shares that I'm considering buying. And at the end of the video, I'm actually going to buy one of these, so stay tuned to see which one I invest in. If we click on Standard Bank, we can see a couple of things like a chart as well as an indicators tab. And I want to click on the indicators. It has a lot of key financial indicators, which is great to go through. But for the purpose of this video, I want to show you one thing that is really important. If I scroll down, we can look at the valuation tab, and it has something called a PE. PE is known as a price to earnings ratio, and it is simply your share price divided by your earnings. You've probably heard of the saying PE ratio, and this is a simple metric you use to compare one company with another company. So generally a PE ratio below 15 might be an indication that it's an undervalued company, but it's important to compare apples with apples. We can't compare a PE ratio of a banking stock with something like a high growth tech stock. Obviously, that just doesn't make sense. For example, Standard Bank has a PE ratio of 6.99, or let's make it 7, and something like Nvidia or AMD has a very high PE ratio. So you obviously need to compare stocks in the same industry. One thing that I want to show you is known as a PEG ratio, and a PEG ratio is a simple metric that I like to use to quickly find out whether a stock is worth investing in or not. This is simply one of the first steps I use, or one of the first methods that I use to identify a potential investment. So the information that we'll need is the PE ratio, like I mentioned now. The next metric we'll have to use is EPS growth. So EPS stands for earnings per share, and EPS is simply a company's net income minus all of its dividends divided by all of its common shares outstanding. I know it might sound a bit confusing. Don't worry too much about that just now. So that's the second metric that we need to be aware of. So to get to our PEG ratio, you will simply divide your price to earnings ratio with your EPS growth rate, giving you a PEG ratio. If that PEG ratio is below 1, it's generally a good indication that the company is undervalued. If it's above 1, it's a really good indication that the company is a bit overvalued, depending on how much above 1 it is. So for this example, I'm going to use the PE ratio of 7 and divide it with its EPS growth of 9.09%, like we can see on Brokestock, and that gives us a PEG ratio of 0.77. So in my opinion, This is a pretty good indication that Standard Bank is undervalued at the moment or at its current share price using the information that we just saw. This alone doesn't really help me, so there's obviously a lot of other information that I need to include in my research before I buy a company like this. We can compare a banking stock with another banking stock. So if I go back and I click on Nedbank, so these are recently viewed stocks, just to make things simpler. If I click on Nedbank and go to the indicators tab, scroll down to its valuation tab, and we can see that Nedbank has a PE ratio of 6.35. So we can see that Nedbank's PE ratio is actually lower than Standard Bank. But if we scroll down, we can see that Nedbank's EPS growth is only 5.49%. So this is how we work out the PEG ratio. We'll take the price to earnings ratio of 6.35 and divide it by its EPS growth rate of 5.5, which gives us a PEG ratio of 1.15. So again, it's not too much above 1, but comparing Nedbank to Standard Bank, in my opinion, Standard Bank will be the better bet if we use the PEG ratio metric. Just as another example, I'm going to use a different industry and we're going to look at Vodacom and MTN. So we all know both of these companies, and if we look at Vodacom and we click on the indicators tab, and we scroll down to find out the PEG ratio, we can see it has a PE ratio of 10 and a EPS growth rate of 0.04%, which is basically flat. If we divide the PE ratio of 10.12 with 0.04, we can see that it has a super high PEG ratio, and that's a good indication that the company is very matured and it doesn't really have a lot of room to grow. And if we go back and have a look at MTN, we'll do exactly the same exercise. We'll click on indicators, scroll down, go to our price to earnings ratio, and we can see that MTN has a lower PE than Vodacom, which is already a good indication that it is valued lower at the moment. If we look at the EPS growth rate over the last 5 years, we can see that MTN has grown its earnings around 34% over the last 5 years. So let's do the exact same exercise and divide our PE ratio of 8.19 with the growth rate of, let's say, 34%, that gives us a PEG ratio of 0.24. So at the moment, MTN seems to be very undervalued with its current share price. With that said, I'm going to show you guys how I buy MTN shares. Once I click on the stock that I like, I can simply click buy. Here we can see the available funds on my profile is around 2,800 Rand. And what we're going to do, we're going to simply place a market order, scroll down and say buy. It will simply load, say that it is successful, and now I own MTN shares. So that's a really simple way to buy shares on the platform. The reason I like using broke stock is because of its low commission, its ease of use, and it also has a lot of relevant information that you can process. We can see stuff like watch list. It gives us a couple of suggestions like growth leaders, companies that has a lot of price drops. It also gives us stuff like market overviews, and as well as screeners, which can identify undervalued companies, long-term growth potential companies, and short-term growth potential companies as well. So there's a lot of useful tools that you can use to make your investing journey a bit easier. If you want to sign up with this platform, you can use the link down in my description. If you register with my link, I get a tiny incentive, which at the end of the day really supports me and the channel, giving us the possibility to grow and to continue making these videos. I like the platform and the way it works. So if you want to and you're watching from a screen, you can actually scan this QR code or pause the screen and scan the QR code. I just wanted to give a shout out to Anya from Tutoring Panda, which created this custom design t-shirt for me specifically. And on the t-shirt it says invest in stock and farm with livestock. So I obviously like investing in stock and investing in livestock, so it's cool that she designed the t-shirt for me specifically. So if you are considering creating custom design t-shirts with great quality, please consider checking out her website at Tutoring Panda, and I'll share the link down in the description, so make sure you check it out and consider buying yourself a custom t-shirt.